Yo, 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 what's going on, my people? It's your boy Pure London, and today we're going to be diving into drum bush. Now, that'll be the secret sauce to making your beat smack harder. So I'm going to show you guys a little bit how I shape my drums with compression, transient EQ, and saturation. I want people to try and keep things as simple as they can when they produce. For those who are starting out, the young ones, you know, this is how I do things, all right? So as you can hear, I've turned everything off, as you can see here, and I'm just listening. I'm just listening just to see what needs to be added on. Right, I'm content with it. Mixed it down a little bit, you know what I mean? Everything's kicking and knocking correctly, but we can do more. We can always do more. The first thing I'm looking at is the compression, yeah? That's the first thing I do. This is where I glue things together. I'm not trying to crush it, just tightening up the dynamics so that the kick and the snare can sit right. Think of it like, I don't know, giving your drums a team huddle. Everyone locked in, moving in as one, okay? I'm not going to get into the details, but I'm just going to try and show you lot with my settings, yeah? So this is it with it on. And then on now. You see? Starts to give it a little bit more va-va-voom. Right, so that'll be it. Now the next one I'm going to look at when I've done all of that is the transient. Now EQ is not necessarily important. You don't really need to worry too much about EQing if you've got some good samples. Remember, I'm going to be making some sample packs for you guys as well, and I'm going to put in a link in one of my other videos, but this is my first tutorial, so guys, bear with me in it. So I'm trying to pattern up. But in this situation here, what I've done is I've used a transient X crack just to give it more like body, you know, give it a bit more context, attack and body, and it's also boosting the attack, making sure that the hits are punchier while controlling and sustaining to keep things a little bit more clean, yeah? You see? It's like sharpening the edges, you know, while keeping a groove crisp, clear, and cutting through that mix. So that's out of the way now. I'm also using as well, as you can see here, the Pior Q3. There you go. This is just to tighten up the low end. Remember, this is a drum bus, so I want to clean up the low end as well because I've got a heavy bass coming through. It's an acoustic one. So, you know, I just took it all up until 30 hertz because obviously that's the part that you don't really want to hear. You don't hear, actually, to be honest with you. And I lowered a little bit more towards the low mid sides, around 400 hertz, just to give it a little bit more of a duck because a lot was happening there. Obviously, with that on now, this is what you get. Again, remember, keeping things again within its context. Remember, it's not every track that you're going to be making or instrumental that you're going to be making that you're going to need to use like everything that man's putting down in that bus. But ideally, you want to follow that kind of structural work, depending on where you're trying to go with the sound. If you're using 808s, if you're using, you know, a synth bass, that's very heavy on the low end and taking out all of the mids. Remember how you're shaping your kit. You want to be able to kind of leave enough space in the spectrum for every single piece of element that you're using in a track. But we're going to develop as time goes on. Remember, this is my first tutorial, and I'm just trying to break down how I work. I've also added this as well, which is Fresh Air. For those who know this, comes from Slate Digital. You know, just to give it a bit more sprinkle towards the high end. Do you get what I mean? So if you turn this on now, this is how it goes. Now, last but not least, will be for me. I use the X-Crack saturator. I put it in the bus saturation because for me it just sounds much more better. Obviously, there's different presets here that you can work with, but I prefer, for me, just how I like my kicks and I like my drums to knock. I prefer the bus sat. Now, saturation, remember, when you use that, it's a touch of warmth you're bringing to your mix and your kits. A bit of grit, suddenly the drums start to feel alive. Trust me, as soon as that switches on. And also, like, the distortion is part of the character as well. You know, think of it of seasoning your groove, you know, add a bit of spice here and there and just give it that little grittiness. It gives the mix a whole feeling, yeah? There you go, guys. That'll be it. But I'm just going to play it overall with everything. Remember, this track, this instrumental, I have made it for tutorial purposes. And also, I've left a video. I released a video, I think, the other day. The full instrumental was there. So for those who want to use it or whatever, feel free to do that. Obviously, you know, if you start making money from it, you better let me know. You know what I mean? But other than that, I'm going to play it as a whole so you can hear how it sounds. And then we'll break it down in an outro, what we've done. That's it, guys. That was a compressor that we used today, a transient EQ. We also stepped into a little bit of saturation. There were the 3 steps that I did, obviously, to make my drum bass pop. Like, when I say pop, that I needed it to, you get what I mean? Give it a nod. We've done a bit more of that, but I would say, guys, overall, trust your ears. You know, experiment, tweak as much as you need to. You know, subtle moves, stack up and make the big track and give it the results. You know what I mean? It's the small little ingredients that you add that will make it what it needs to be. Remember, there is no right or wrong. It's trust your ears. If your drums aren't knocking or making you nod, you got to keep dialing until it nods. This is me today, guys. Out here.